Bo Nickal is fighting this weekend in what will be his biggest test in Reiner de Ridder, who is an absolute beast. Also, the card is main evented by Davison Figueiredo and Corey Sandhagen, which I'll get to in a bit, but I don't think that fight's as intriguing as this one. So I'm going to cover this one first, go into depth here. Again, as always, going to the X's and O's. Give my prediction as it's been highly requested. Of course, I'm going to look at the other fights on the card too, other than the main and co-main. But I'm starting with the co-main. Like I said, more intriguing matchup. Both are undefeated in the UFC, but I just don't think Reiner de Ridder will be able to beat Bo, and I'll tell you why. First of all, Reiner de Ridder's path to victory would be through a submission. We can look at his career. Almost all his wins come by submission. So obviously, he's an extremely lethal threat on the ground, and you don't want to screw around with him there, right? Here's the thing about Bo Nickal. Bo Nickal hasn't even had a takedown attempted on him in the UFC, so we can't say for certain what it's going to look like, but I think we all have a pretty good idea of how good his takedown defense will be, given the fact that he's one of the greatest Penn State wrestlers of all time. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's going to be pretty solid. On top of that, let's say RDR gets Bo down, because RDR is a pretty good grappler. Bo's best attribute to his wrestling isn't his takedowns. It isn't his defense. At least not that we know of. Maybe he has Jose out of defense, who knows. But Bo's best attribute on the ground is his ability to scramble. We've seen Bo in multiple scrambles in the UFC so far, and he always ends up on top. And you can even go back to his college career and see the same thing. His scrambling ability is absolutely insane. Gerald Meerschaert reversed RDR multiple times. And sorry to burst your bubble, but Gerald Meerschaert isn't a tenth of the wrestler that Bo Nickal is, or a grappler. His BJJ is better, of course, his pure BJJ, but I'm talking overall grappling. You know, it's close, maybe a little closer than I said, but Bo has the clear advantage over Gerald Meerschaert in the grappling department. When Gerald Meerschaert's reversing RDR, that's a pretty bad look. They were 1-1 going into the third round. RDR got the submission, a very good submission over a very game opponent, but something's telling me that Bo Nickal wouldn't drop around to Gerald Meerschaert. Bo Nickal is, we can look here. Bo Nickal's been to one decision in the UFC against Paul Craig. Bo won a clean 30-27 on Paul Craig. We didn't see the grappling checked, but we did learn that Bo can strike with these guys. And because whether you like it or not, Paul Craig's not the best striker. He's very chinny, but he does have very good body kicks. And again, he's been in the game for a while. His striking is naturally going to be good. It's not like he has Ben Askren level striking. Paul Craig's striking isn't terrible at all, and Bo Nickal outstruck him for 3 rounds. Reiner de Ridder's only 2 losses have come by KO, him getting outstruck. And he has very few wins where he's actually outstriking the guy. I think Bo's going to have the advantage on the feet. He may not have the power advantage because RDR actually has some pretty solid power, but I think overall, technique-wise, Bo's going to have the advantage. We can even look at the defense. Reiner de Ridder has a 39% significant strike defense compared to Bo Nickal's 65% significant strike defense. Bo Nickal only absorbs a little under 2 strikes per minute, whereas RDR absorbs a little under 3. So RDR gets hit a lot more, and also Bo Nickal's had a lot more time on the feet, and RDR is still the one getting hit more than Bo Nickal. And then I'll say this about RDR, his takedown defense is very impressive, but Bo doesn't even need to take him down. If RDR so chooses to shoot, which he will, I guarantee you RDR is going to shoot. It's not even a question. RDR is 100% going to shoot in this fight. I think Bo is going to end up on top, because at the end of the day, they're not just going to end up in guard the second he shoots. The second he initiates the shot and initiates the grappling, that is when the scramble will begin. They're not going to be in half guard. They're not going to be in jiu-jitsu positions from there. There will be a scramble, and there will be a transition. And then in that transition period, when RDR is trying to get into Bo's guard, half guard, full mount, whatever it may be, Bo will end up on top in that transition period. And I just think it's going to be a lost cause for RDR. And then they're going to end up back on the feet. Again, RDR has good power. We haven't really seen Bo's chin tested too much, but we know Bo has good defense. Bo's striking defense is very solid. He's very cautious on the feet. He hasn't really been hurt at all, has barely been cut up. And RDR is not the prettiest striker, and his striking technique at the end of the day is not very high level. So I think Bo's going to easily be able to defend his striking. Of course, RDR can land a lucky punch. It's very possible. But at the end of the day, Bo's defense is so solid on the feet, and his striking, while it's a little basic, it works. It's simple. It's clean, and he can blend the striking and wrestling together very well. Again, I think Bo's going to fight this like he fought the Paul Craig fight, except RDR is going to shoot. And when we see that, I think Bo's going to end up on top. I don't think Bo's going to be taken down. And if he is taken down for a brief second, he's either going to get right back up or scramble to a top position like Gerald Meerschaert did. If he can do it, Bo Nickal can. Bo Nickal has the best pure folk style wrestling in the UFC, or at least in the middleweight division. So for my final prediction, I'm going to go Bo Nickal by decision. I think on the feet, he's just going to be able to land more on RDR. You know, RDR doesn't do the best when he's getting pressure with strikes. And then when RDR does shoot, I think Bo's going to be able to out-scramble him. I don't think RDR is going to get Bo in any compromising positions on the ground, which is where he does his best work. We can look at like the RDR win against Kevin Holland. You can say, yeah, he submitted Holland faster than Hamzat did, but let's look at the fact of the matter. RDR was 22 pounds more than Kevin Holland when they fought, on top of the fact that he beat the worst version of Kevin Holland we've ever seen in the UFC. 185 Kevin Holland is not good in general. And on top of that, it was a Kevin Holland on a losing streak, so I believe. Don't quote me on that, but at the end of the day, he beat the worst version of Kevin Holland, which, again, still a solid win. Kevin Holland has actually pretty decent grappling. But, like I said, he's not a tenth of the scrambler that Bo is. So, when RDR is getting lit up on the feet, and he goes to shoot the single, and it grabs a hold of Bo's leg, I think Bo's going to have the advantage in that position. And it's going to be very, very hard for RDR to win those scrambles to get Bo to those positions. The full guard, half guard, full mount. Any positions where he can work on the ground, he's going to have to shoot and take down Bo. And I don't think it's going to happen. I think Bo will end up on top. Who knows, maybe RDR will pull guard, but even then, you can look at someone like Volkanovski, who's very good on top, doesn't really get submitted when he's on top. I think Bo is going to be similar to that. He's just going to be very conscious and keep himself out of danger. And yeah, I just think he gets this one done. When I first saw the matchup, I thought Bo was kind of cooked, but the more I looked into it, the more I kind of realized RDR is not really the best striker on the feet, and no one's going to out-scramble Bo. So I'm going Bo Nickal, but I will say the odds are way blown out of proportion. I mean, if you put a bet on RDR, that's not a bad idea at all. RDR definitely has a chance. It's not like it's going to be 100% Bo Nickal. No other way. Of course, RDR has a chance. He has more power on the feet. He has a better jiu-jitsu, so he probably has a higher chance of finishing the fight than Bo does, but Bo will be able to defend all his attacks and take him to a decision. Also, it says he's 6'4", which is not true. Main event, Corey Sandhagen versus Figgy. I mean, we can just look at this and I can tell you the winner. Corey Sandhagen's 4 years younger than Figgy, who is, as far as bantamweight goes, he's 3 or 4 years past his prime. He's coming off a beatdown from Peter Yan. Corey Sandhagen's coming off a beatdown from Umar, but the difference is Corey Sandhagen did not take as much damage as Figgy did. Corey Sandhagen actually looked decent in his last fight. We know Umar's a very solid striker, and he's outstriking Corey, but Corey did really well in the scrambles and defending Umar's attacks for the most part on the ground, at least better than expected. So obviously Figgy, he has a good BJJ. I think Corey Sandhagen's going to be more than ready to defend it. And then in the striking, Corey Sandhagen's going to play it safe. He'll be able to keep his defense up. He'll be able to sting Figgy. I'm going to say Corey Sandhagen wins this one by 5-round decision because Figgy's hard to put away, but you can tag him up from range. And I think it's going to look like a less violent version of the Piotr Jan fight where Corey Sandhagen's just piecing him up. You know, Figgy might have a moment. He might catch Sandhagen at one point, but Sandhagen has a pretty solid chin at the end of the day, and I think Corey's going to get it done. This one is very interesting. Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Daniel Rodriguez. Both mainly strikers, both washed. So the question is, which washed fighter do you go with? We can't really judge them by their last 10 fights or whatever, because at this age, they're getting worse and worse each fight. But just by looking at their last 1 or 2 fights, Santiago Ponzinibbio has looked far better than D-Rod. He's coming off a knockout win. D-Rod's coming off a split decision win over Alex Morono, who is not looking good either. So I just think Ponzinibbio gets it done. Montel Jackson, Daniel Marcos. Montel Jackson has the better grappling. He gets hit less than Daniel Marcos. Montel's coming off a first-round knockout. Marcos is coming off a split decision against Giannis. Montel Jackson knocked out Blackshear, who's very solid, but I think Montel Jackson gets it done. Like I said, better grappling, and I think he's better on the feet too. So I'd say Montel Jackson's going to take Daniel Marcus' O this weekend. I'm going to go with Cameron Smotherman. He's a younger fighter. He has better grappling. Their striking's about equal, so I'm just going to go with Cameron Smotherman. Not too much to say. I don't know these guys. I couldn't name you the first 10 opponents or anything. Next, we got one of the biggest fights in the card. The return of Jeremy Stephens. Who the is this guy? Versus Mason Jones. Mason Jones is low-key not the best, but Jeremy Stephens is 37, 38 years old. He left the UFC on a losing streak, and he went over to Bare Knuckle, did some stuff over there, but Mason Jones should be able to get this one done. Prime for prime, Stevens could probably beat him, but this ain't prime Stevens anymore. We know when Stevens hits people, he knocks them out cold, but I don't think he's going to be hitting anyone. I just think he's too old, too slow. I'm going to go with Mason Jones. Miesha Tate versus Yana Santos. I don't know too much about these gals. I'm going to go Miesha Tate. I just know she's been around the block, fought for a few titles, whatever. Ryan Loder versus Azmat Bekov. I mean, Azmat, I think, should just be able to out-grapple him to a decision. And don't ask my rhyme or reason. That's just what I'm telling you will happen. So Azmat Bekov should be a pretty safe pick. That's all I got to say for that one. Marina Rodriguez versus Jillian Robertson. Again, these gals, you know, they've been around the block. They're hardened veterans of the sport. I'm going to go with Marina Rodriguez. I think she'll be able to defend Jillian Robertson's takedowns and maybe outstrike her, outdamage her a little bit. But who knows? Gaston Bolanos versus Kang Lee. I'm going to go with Gaston Bolanos. Kwang Lee gets hit more than Bolanos does. Bolanos will be able to tag him up. Bolanos got good grappling. He'll be able to do whatever he wants to Kang Lee and absolutely decimate him. We got a future bantamweight champ on our hands in Gaston Bolanos. On to the next. Thomas Peterson versus Dontel Mays. This is a pretty easy one for Thomas Peterson. Both these men are coming off the couch. You know, they got the call when they had a bag of chips in the right hand, ice cream bowl in the left. Both these men have been in our camp for a few years, it looks like. It's going to come down to a puncher's chance, and looks like Dontel Mays hasn't been looking too hot. Thomas Peterson has less defeats, presumably less damage. So I'm going to go Thomas Peterson. They're both blobs. Who cares? And next we got the fight everyone's been waiting for. Juliana Miller versus Ivana Petrovic. You know, fans have been chomping at the bit to get this fight. I'm going to go Ivana Petrovic because she's been an absolute killer lately. And she's absolutely savage. Whatever, bro. Like, those are my picks for the UFC fight night. Sandhagen versus Figueiredo. And why I think Bo Nickal will get this one done. You know, obviously the odds, not a bad play to pick RDR, but I think just on paper, Bo is going to be the winner. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments. As always, I respond to all the comments, and thank you for watching. I'll see you soon.